As a kid, my very first memories of gaming took place on the PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo Entertainment System. My dad was super into tech when I was younger, and as a result, he got both gaming systems when they first came out. While the NES was quite a bit older, it still held up. Even in the mid-90s, it was still a fantastic console. But I have to be honest, the PlayStation 1 was my clear favourite at the time. With timeless classics such as Medieval, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Tarzan, Rugrats, Search for Reptar, just getting lost in these incredible worlds was the best thing a kid like me could ask for. And as a kid, these games were basically my Saturday morning cartoons. The big leap, however, was when Dad purchased an extra controller for the PlayStation. It opened up a whole new world of two-player games like Crash Team Racing, Need for Speed, and Tekken. Playing these games on family night with your favourite cousin was always the highlight. It also weirdly felt like the PlayStation 1 was relevant for a really long time. After school, I would go over to friends' houses, and most of the time they would have a PS1. In grade 2 or 3, I would go over to my best friend's Claudia's house, and we would play Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It was always a blast, and not to mention we didn't even slightly notice how terrible the graphics were. It was quite literally a magical time. So many countless hours spent with family and friends on that one console, and much of my childhood memories and DNA were structured around that little grey box. But then, one day, the unimaginable happened. My sister and I, at around age 5 and 7, clicked in the disc, shut the lid, turned on the console, and would get stuck on the boot screen. We tried restarting the console, and it happened again. We swapped the disc, it gets stuck again. This couldn't be happening. After years of use, hundreds of hours of entertainment, and countless memories, it was seemingly unable to play games any longer. Its time had come. The laser that reads the disc had weakened, something I didn't figure out until years later and found was a common problem with the console after prolonged use. For the most part, my PlayStation experience had sadly come to an end. A few years had passed at this point and the PlayStation 2 had been released into the world. I would go over to my cousins or friends and play the PS2. Usually we would play The Simpsons Hit and Run. It was fun, but I never really fully got into the console. The graphics were better, but nothing about it seemed like it was for me. Our family didn't still have a working console for a long time. The PS1 was still out of commission and the NES had lost the ability to read games due to the cartridge compartment failing. Our family had also moved to a new house in the country, so I just assumed they didn't have any money to spend on luxuries like a gaming console. That all changed in late 2004, when my parents asked me what I wanted for my birthday that year. At that moment in time, I really wanted a Nintendo DS, which was all the rage among my friends. But my dad, being someone who was on the cutting edge, suggested I get an Xbox instead. I hadn't seen one until this point, but he showed me a catalogue with an odd-shaped console and convinced me this was going to be a much better option because we could all play, and it included an extra controller and a weird game called Halo 2. I remember the morning of my 10th birthday so vividly, me waking up extra early to open up the Xbox my parents had bought me. I finally had my very own game console. After years of not having direct access to games, I frantically set up the Xbox, loaded the disc, turned it on, and was greeted by high-energy, futuristic green blobs followed by the roaring guitar playing what I now know to be the Halo theme. Everything from the loading screen to the music felt so futuristic, so refined. My sister and I eagerly attempted to cram in a session of Slayer before we had to leave for school. We sucked. This was our first time playing a proper first-person shooter, and it was going to take a bit longer for us to figure out the controls. In saying that, over the next year or so, Halo became my go-to game. While we still had other awesome games like Star Wars Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, Fable, The Sims 2, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, nothing compared to Halo. I remember the countless nights where me and my dad would stay up super late playing the main campaign, beating it over and over. It was so much fun. Then, everything changed. My parents got a divorce. It was a super rough time for 11-year-old me. My dad went to live with my grandma and grandpa, and my mum stayed at the family home. Everything was fractured. My whole family split apart, and as a child there wasn't much to keep me grounded. I would stay at mum's during the week and visit my dad's on the weekend, and the Xbox would go with me everywhere I went. One weekend in specific, my dad had a surprise for me. It was Halo Combat Evolved. Up until that point, I'd only played Halo 2 and didn't even cross my mind that there was a whole other game that came before it. I loved CE, maybe even more than Halo 2. Learning the backstory and lore behind Chief and Cortana discovering the first Halo ring was mind-blowing. I played the crap out of that game. For the longest time, it was the only constant. Playing Halo with my dad on the weekends or alone at my mum's, transporting to another world, a place that was familiar, that wouldn't suddenly change, keeping me centered during the toughest moments in my childhood. It was a healthy distraction. As the years went on, things did get easier, and my love for Xbox grew. I now saw the console as something that got me through my parents' divorce, and Master Chief was my hero I looked up to when it seemed like the whole world was filled with chaos and disorder. A couple years had passed, and by this point the Xbox 360 had been released. At the time, it wasn't much of an interest to me. I had every game I'd ever wanted on the Xbox original, so it just passed me by. That was until E3 2006, however, when Microsoft announced a new Halo game coming exclusively to the 360. After watching the trailer, I began the exciting wait for what I thought was at the time the final installment in the Halo trilogy. I obsessed over the idea that there was a new Halo game coming. I would draw Halo designs and class and had the soundtrack on my crappy MP3 player. Only problem was, I didn't have a 360. I was stuck with my original. For months, I worked on convincing my dad to buy me one and explained that all my current Xbox games worked on the 360. He knew how much I loved Halo and how important it was to me, but never let on that he was going to get one for my birthday or Christmas. Leading up to the release of Halo 3 in late 2007, I was getting more and more worried that I wouldn't be able to play the game due to not owning a 360. It was Christmas of 2007 and still no 360 or Halo 3 in sight. I remember going to Dad's for Christmas after lunch and opening our presents with him, my sister and my grandma. He let on that we weren't going to get much because it's been a difficult year with money and handed me a soft present at first. Opening it, I found a new beach towel. I was disappointed to say the least, but acted surprised to make him feel happy. Then he told me to unfold the towel. As I unfolded it, I noticed a green piece of plastic was comfortably sitting in the center. It was a game cover with the title Halo 3 for Xbox 360. Both confused and excited, I looked up and noticed he had a second present, wrapped in a much bigger box. It was, to my utmost surprise, an Xbox 360. And safe to say, was the coolest, most unexpected Christmas ever. Just like the original Xbox, I rushed to unbox the 360 and set it up without missing a beat. This time though, I was greeted with a more refined, slick boot screen with an energized cinematic, showing the amazing graphics the console was capable of rendering. I chucked the Halo disc in, and the next 7 years are, as they say, history. I played the heck out of that game and console, all while still carrying it back and forth to Mum's and Dad's house. I can't tell you how much I loved that console. It was so ahead of its time, and felt like it was a glimpse into the future. Better yet, the game selection was out of this world, and I also found a new love for a game franchise, BioShock, which I equally obsessed over alongside Halo 3. The decent upscaling graphics made everything seem more real, like you were actually looking through the eyes of the character, and it made it so much more textured and layered. There were countless times when I would take the 360 over to family friend's house. We would all play 4-player Slayer on their giant projector setup, and it was genuinely some of the most fun I've ever had playing Halo. As more years went on, so did the catalogue of games released for the platform. Games like BioShock Infinite, Portal 2, and most notably Halo Reach. This console brought genuine fun to gaming, and while it had a few cool software features like the addition of YouTube and playing videos from a USB stick, it stuck true to being a dedicated gaming system above all else. A few more years would go by, and at this point, both the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 were announced. I watched both of these presentations, and at the time, I have to say neither really piqued my interest. Both consoles had a pretty weak game lineup, and had made up my mind that I would just stick to the 360 until something compelling came around. A few months into the release of the new console, one of my friends, Zach, convinced me to get a PS4 because of the updated graphics, and a few of the games slightly piqued my interest. For the first time in 10 years, I was back to the PlayStation ecosystem. While the graphical jump was outstanding, There just wasn't anything at the time that really gripped me or made me excited to play. All it did was look cool, and that was about it. At this point, I was still playing my Xbox 360 more than I was the PS4. Without any compelling games, the 360 was still doing what I needed it to do for me. However, that completely shifted during E3 of 2014, when 343 announced the Master Chief Collection, an assembly of all the Halo games, including a remastered version of Halo 2 coming to the Xbox One. This was the exact light switch moment I had when Halo 3 was announced for the 360. The Xbox One finally had value in my mind because it hosted a killer game, and I was fully in. Having every Halo game, excluding Reach, all in one package on the Xbox One was the ultimate deal and instantly made the Xbox 360 obsolete in my mind. And now, after 6 years of gaming on the Xbox One, I feel like we're approaching a sort of crossroads when it comes to the future of the game console. There is a vibe from the tech giants like Microsoft and Google that in just a few short years, the game console will become obsolete, replaced with cloud services that render games remotely. This new way of dispensing games to the user has the potential of rendering the game's console obsolete by only needing a low-level hardware bridge like a Chromecast to output the video signal. It's a lot more complicated than this, but the seeds of this gaming future are being sown, and it's only a matter of time until we have to make a choice. This idea sounds truly foreign and might make some people, like myself, a little bit nervous. We've become accustomed to the idea that game consoles live these short lives and there is always something bigger and better around the corner. These streaming services take that idea away. They will offer almost unlimited resources to game developers and will be free to scale their games naturally as time progresses. No longer will there be strict graphical guidelines that need to be met in order to have a game played on a $300 box. Instead, it will use advanced scalable technology that is constantly on the cutting edge. It feels weird to want this future, yet be saddened by the idea that in a few short years, everything we have come to expect is going to go away. Console generations are almost a thing of the past, and just like the iPod phase in our history, it will become cannibalized by the next big leap in technological trends. There is a lot to unpack when it comes to how we should expect the next few years of the game console to unfold, but I honestly think it comes down to one thing: the games. The only way to succeed going forward is the quality of the games on the system or services that are offered to us, the gamers. More times than not, the games that come with a system are always at the forefront of what is most important, and at the end of the day is the only thing that truly matters. When I get lost in a game, I'm never thinking about the console I'm using to render the graphics of a game. I don't care if someone uses a PS4, a Switch, Xbox, PC, whatever. All I care about is the game, and that is the only thing that will ever matter. When we play the games we love and get transported to that other world, the box that sits quietly under the screen, it doesn't matter. Only the games do. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking through, listening to the end. This one's taken me a little bit longer to write because it's a bit more personal than usual, but I really hope you enjoyed. I'm so sorry about my voice. I'm halfway through a cold at the moment. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys.